Hello and welcome back to DIY TV. Today we're going to have a look at doing something that lots of DIY people will be faced with all of the time. I know I've tackled lots of jobs like this over the years, and it is hanging a mirror. Now in this case we're doing this in a small bathroom area, so the audio might be a little bit echoey due to the nature of the room, so I apologise about that. But massive thanks to everyone who has been watching these videos already. It's a very new and early channel, and I really do appreciate that support. So if you haven't already and you're enjoying the content we're sharing on here, please click the subscribe button below, give us a little thumbs up, and it helps make a massive difference to this channel growing ever further. Before we get into all of the installation side of this, I thought I'd run through some of the tools that you're going to need just to set out everything you might want to get together if you're about to tackle this yourself. So let's have a look at exactly what we need to take on a simple task of hanging a picture or a mirror. So the tool that's going to help you out the most in setting all this out to the location you want it on a wall is going to be a tape measure. Now you could use a laser level to help mark where your fixings are going to be by holding the picture or mirror on the wall, but that's not something that DIYers generally have in their toolkits, so a tape measure is the start point, just to measure where your fixings are on the back of the piece of equipment you want it to hang onto the wall, and then to transfer those markings and spacings onto the wall surface itself. You'll also need some fixings, and in this case we're going for red plugs and screws. It is a lightweight mirror, there's just a couple of hooks on the back that I'll show you in a minute, and they sit on the screw heads directly. You could, if you want, go for a brown plug and screw if you felt the weight of the object you were hanging warranted it. And obviously this is a breeze block wall, so if you're faced with something that's timber based or a plasterboard construction, you'll need a different type of fixing, but this is what we're using in this application. There's then also the PPE aspect. One of the things you don't want to do while you're carrying out DIY is hurt yourself. So you see I've got some gloves on here, I've got some ear defenders to hand, and also some goggles, so we know that we're going to stay safe while we're doing the work task. You'll also need something to make a hole in the wall for the drilling. Now you could use a small SDS drill here, as is the case that I have in my kit. You could use a combi drill, so if you don't have a separate SDS drill or impact driver as such, you could use a combi drill which would do both of the drilling and also then inserting the screws afterwards. So that's kind of a multi-tool if you like. Combi drill is really handy and useful to have in your kit. They're quite low cost and they cover a lot of bases, so if you're a DIYer that's a great one to get into your tool bag. And then an impact driver here. Now these are overrated, I would say, for driving in some screws into some red plugs. You don't really want to be impacting them either. These are more for big wood fixings and such, but if you're capable and competent in using an impact driver, it's really easy to pop those screws in, and having a tool set up ready to go for each individual task speeds the process up. Now we're lucky because in the day job I am a working electrician and we have a lot of power tools, and one of the ones we have to use out on site to minimise dust is one of these, and it has a hoover built into the drill. So this is an SDS drill again, same as the smaller Milwaukee red one I showed you earlier, so this one here, just a bit more powerful, and it has a hoover built in, so when you make the hole in the wall there'll be no dust falling down onto the wall, onto the floor to clean up afterwards. Less dust in the air for you to breathe in and get on your clothes, just a healthier and easier way of doing the task. And the other beauty of this tool is you can actually set the depth you want to drill. So you see there I've already set that depth, which is for a red plug, so it will not go any further than that. There's no need to mark the drill bit. A small tip if you don't have one of these and you're just using a normal SDS or combi drill, if you get a red plug and position it against the drill bit, mark the base of that with a marker pen onto the drill bit, or you can even wrap some electrical tape around it. Marker pen's better because it doesn't move about once it's on there, and then you know how far you need to drill into the wall for the depth of fixing you're using. So again, if you're using brown plugs, that'd be a bigger drill bit that's marked or exposed on here, and then you're not wasting time going any deeper into the surface than you need to, and you know that the fixing hole is exactly the right depth for the product that you're using. I think that's it in terms of the equipment you need. You can see you don't really need a great deal. There is the spirit level actually as well. So obviously once you've transferred your markings onto the wall, so you've, as we'll do in a moment and demonstrate, you've got the spacings off the back of the mirror, transfer them to the wall, use a spirit level to make sure that they are actually straight and square before you drill the holes. So let's get to it. We'll spin this mirror around, we'll see the spacings between the fixings, and we'll start installing this into the bathroom. Okay, so with the mirror here you can see the two hooks I was talking about. These are fixed onto the frame on the rear side of this mirror. So we need to know the spacings between these two first and foremost, and then the distance from the top or the bottom of the mirror based on where you're working from. I'm going to work from the top, made a mark on the wall where I'd like the top of this mirror to finish, so we can then measure down and apportion our fixings in the right place. So with the tape measure, simply go to the middle point of that fixing and the one over here as well, and I've got 855 millimeters. It's always worth making sure you've got those square and true to make sure those spacings are absolutely spot on, and we are. So that's 855 millimeters. I'll make a little note on the back of the mirror here. May help the next person coming along who has to reposition it, and also make sure I remember that distance. And then just to check off the top of the mirror again, so we've got 200 mil to the top of that one and 200 millimeters to the top of that one. And again, just make a little note of that so you know when you're transferring those markings onto the wall what you're faced with. So the central point of this mirror I'm going for is here. The overall width is 910 millimeters. So if I go for 455 on that central mark, I can then mark the outer and inner edges of that. So we have 910 millimeters, half of that is 455, so we can mark that there. And then we know how 900 millimeters to the edge at one side is here. Oops-a-daisy. The end of the tape behaves, and the other edge is here. And that's just a way to visualise on the wall where this is going to live before you start making your fixings. It could be that actually you want to move it about when you see where those are finishing. It's hard when you're holding something up to fully take in where it needs to be unless you've got a second person helping you. So now I can see that's going to live there. It's pretty much where I want it, which is fantastic. So we can now look at marking our fixing holes in terms of these red plugs we need to drill out ready to hang the mirror. So I'll do that now. So if we measure down off this centre mark that I've got here, the 200 millimeters depth, which I have there, so that's dropping the fixing point below the top of the mirror down 200 millimeters, which is the space we've got here. I'm then going to use my spirit level to get me a straight line across the wall, roughly to the point of where the fixings are going to be. So that's here. I can see the end of the mirror, so I don't want to go any further than that, otherwise that will be visible outside of the mirror itself when we put it on the wall. So I'm just stopping short of the edge there, and that's giving me a line now that I know is level to work from. Again, now I've got this measurement of 855 millimeters, so I need half of that to then take out each way for the fixings into the wall. So rough maths, 427.5 millimeters I make has been the midpoint. So if we go for 4 to 7, just between 8, so it's there-ish. We can make a mark on the end over here. And then again, if I bring it out the other way to the 855, just double check that's what it is, and make another mark over on there. So I've now got my two marks on either end, and I know they're 855 millimeters apart. Just double check that, better to measure twice and cut once, as they say. I've got the midpoint set as 427.5, so I know that that's going to keep this central to the outer markings I've made up here as well for the mirror, that were the 910 millimeters overall distance. So if I make some holes into the wall here now, we should be able to pop those plugs and screws in, and then hopefully this mirror sits square onto those, nice and straight on the wall. So I'll do that right now. So if you're using one of these, if you retract the cover cap for the drill bit into the drill so you can get it onto the actual place you want to fix, and then let it spring back out, you need to be in hammer mode and then make your hole. And repeat that process over at the other side. So you would have heard the hoover kicking in there, and you can see as I've done that drilling, there's been absolutely no dust, there's none in the air, there's nothing dropped down onto the floor. Super easy for cleaning up afterwards, and there's nothing nasty for me to breathe in either while we're doing the work. So I didn't need to wear a mask in this case. If you were using a normal SDS drill or a combi drill and there's dust that's going to end up in the air, make sure you do pop a mask on. You don't want to be breathing that stuff in. But in this case, I'm totally fine. There's not a drop of dust absolutely anywhere. Okay, so now we want to pop our plugs in. Simply push them into the hole, get them in as far as you can. You want them to be nice and snug and tight. Give them a tap home, so you know they're in there rock solid. Again, same with the other side. And you can see they've gone in nicely. If you find when you're tapping them home they start to splay apart or they don't go all the way in, chances are you haven't drilled the hole deep enough. So as much as you hit onto them and try and get them in the work, so recheck that you've actually drilled far enough into the wall, that you've used the right size drill bit. In this case it's a 5.5mm drill bit, but it's worth checking with the particular plugs you're using, because some red plugs will want a 6mm, some will want a 5.5. Using brown plugs it's different again, so make sure you read the packet and use the right size drill bit, get your depth right and you shouldn't go wrong. So now that's in place, we can just drop the screws in. So this part's definitely easier with the second person, but once you've got the screws into the wall and you've left maybe 5mm sticking out, you need to get the mirror into place, have a little look behind on one side and make sure you're getting that hook over the screw head, as I have done there. And I think it's actually dropped onto the other side already, but not in the right position, so I just want to lift that, make sure that's on there. We can see now that's grabbed onto the mirror. And you want to make sure that you've got those hooks on there, so the last thing you want is for this to be falling down. As long as you get one side in place first, you can do it yourself. Carefully work over to the other side, make sure you go and have a look down that side and ensure that the hook's set over the screw. See, now that is absolutely rock solid. You can pop this spirit level onto the top and see if we're actually level. And we are, that's absolutely plumb and square, which is fantastic. So you can see we've got the bubble dead in the middle there, nice and straight, which is what we wanted. And that mirror is now attached to the wall nice and safe. You just need to ensure, if you're doing this yourself, that you get one side over that screw first. Go over to the other side and have a little look down there and make sure it has actually hooked over the screw head. So what you don't want is for it to just be catched on the edge of the fixing, and then when you step away it all falls off onto the floor. Or if you're really unlucky after you've told the other occupants of the house or building that everything is now in place and working and it falls on them. Not a good look. So make sure you've done that. I'm happy with that now. It's filled this space nicely. We've got a mirror up on this wall so people coming to use the bathroom can check themselves out before they go back into the office. And yeah, really simple job. I hope that's been of some help for those of you who are tackling some of these DIY tasks at home. If you've got any questions, please do drop them in below on the comments, and I will link over to some of the bits of equipment I've used if you want to go and have a look at how much those cost and where you can purchase them from. So the drills and drill bits, for example, if you want to go off and check those out, be in the description below. And as I said at the start of this video, if you're enjoying this content, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps massively in developing this new effort I'm making to help people out with some basic DIY tasks at home. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again on the next one.